Chapter 1254. Actually, Hero Xiao, this is what happened. Elder Sun knew that if he didn't explain everything today, he wouldn't be able to get through this. He could only smile bitterly and say, in the beginning, Awakening Heaven's sect did want to get rid of you, but this has nothing to do with me. It was an order from our sect's supreme elder. I was only responsible for passing it down and letting the people below carry it out. Don't take it to heart. Wait. What did you say? Supreme Elder? Xiao Chen waved his hand to stop Elder Sun's words. He asked in surprise, in your Awakening Heaven sect, other than that Hao Tian who is the Supreme Sect Master, there is another Supreme Elder? Was he the one who wanted to kill me? Xiao Chen, who was originally filled with anger, felt a little baffled. The relationship of this Awakening Heaven sect was really messy. What was going on? Yes. Elder Sun nodded obediently and explained, our Awakening Heaven sect has two Supreme Sect Masters and Supreme Elders. The Sect Master's strength is relatively high, while the Elders are responsible for some of the complicated affairs in the sect. According to what you said, Situ Qitian isn't considered a leader in your sect? He's just an errand boy? Xiao Chen looked at the ruins of the spell formation. He didn't expect that this incomparably arrogant Situ Qitian was just a small fry. Elder Sun sighed softly and shook his head. Back then, the Supreme Sect Master left not long after returning from the immortal cultivation world. Before leaving, he passed the position of the Sect Master to Situ Qitian and set the rule that the sect's disciples can no longer enter the immortal cultivation world through the spell formation. Little girl Xing nodded slightly. She also knew about this rule. It was just that the sect's disciples can't go to that mysterious place through the spell formation. At that time, she didn't understand what it was. When she asked others, they didn't say anything, so she didn't take it to heart. After the Supreme Sect Master left, the Supreme Elder, who has always been responsible for our sect's internal affairs, secretly controlled the power of Awakening Heaven sect through Situ Qitian. Elder Sun lowered his head and said softly, Supreme Sect Master had always thought that Qi Tian's Sect Master was his man. I didn't expect that Qi Tian's Sect Master had already sided with Supreme Elder. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes quietly. He did not expect that Awakening Sect, the leader of the internal world of martial artists and a giant of the evil cult, would have such complicated factions. It seemed that the Grand Elder didn't have any good intentions. However, what was the current strength of that fellow? Most importantly. Elder Sun then pointed at the formation and continued, Grand Elder has always been very interested in going to the cultivation world and wanted to restart this plan. After all, everyone wants to have more power. However, sect leader Grand Elder strictly forbade this. The sect rules cannot be easily changed, so this matter was put on hold. Wait a minute, I'm even more confused about this. Xiao Chen couldn't help but ask directly, what does it have to do with me whether he can go to the cultivation world or not? Why do you keep coming here to plot against me? Does he also have a grudge against me? Or is he the same as that sect leader Haotian, especially infatuated with my mother? One snatched her away, and the other wanted to make a move against me? He has no grudge against you, but he does have some relationship with your mother. Elder Sun swallowed hard and then explained, it is because of this matter of going to the cultivation world that he specially came to find you. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and simply didn't ask any more. He waited for Elder Sun to continue. Because after sect leader Grand Elder wandered, he disappeared for many years and didn't come back. Grand Elder thinks that sect leader Grand Elder might have died or gone to another plane and won't come back. So, he wants to use you to see if he can lure sect leader Grand Elder out. If he can't be lured out, it proves that he has completely disappeared. Elder Sun spent a lot of effort to finish explaining. He was so tired that he was sweating profusely. The more I listen to you, the more confused I become. Xiao Chen didn't buy it and continued to ask, how can you use me to lure that Situ Haotian out? I'm not even his biological son. At this point, a thought suddenly appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. Could it be that my biological father isn't Xiao Feng? But that Situ Haotian and my mother gave birth to me? Isn't that a bit too melodramatic? No, 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 absolutely impossible. You are not sect leader Grand Elder's son, but you are the son of the person he loves the most. Elder's son was very smooth this time. Don't look at our sect leader Grand Elder who has 3 wives and 4 concubines. The person he loves the most in his heart is still your mother. If you encounter any danger in the secular world or the martial world, then your mother will certainly come to your rescue regardless of everything. Then, of course, sect leader Grand Elder who follows her will not just sit back and do nothing. He will certainly help. Hearing this, Xiao Chen finally understood the ins and outs of the matter. If his mother had been watching him, if his life was in danger, she would appear to save him. Naturally, that sect leader Grand Elder Situ Haotian would also rush over and appear in front of the world. After thinking through this logic, Xiao Chen couldn't help but curse in his heart. It seemed that this sect leader Grand Elder really had too many chores to handle. Why did he have to make such a simple matter so complicated and meticulous? Ordinary people really couldn't understand. It seemed that he was indeed made for a schemer. Elder Son saw that after his tireless explanation, Xiao Chen finally showed a look of realization. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. This roundabout explanation was much more tiring than fighting 300 rounds with the enemy. What happened after that? Xiao Chen thought through the key points in the front and began to ask about what happened after that. After Chao Yuliang and the others failed, even the Kuei Mountain sect fell. Why didn't you guys chase after me? Shouldn't you be chasing after me? It's very simple. Previously, when Chao Yuliang and the Kuei Mountain sect made a move, that was a matter between the secular world and the martial world. It had nothing to do with our Awakening Heaven sect. Elder Son shrugged and replied, but if we made a move on you and the sect leader found out, wouldn't all our previous efforts be in vain? Wouldn't we be greatly implicated? So in order to monitor my every move, you purposely sent the ignorant Lady Xing to my side? Xiao Chen asked coldly. Elder Son nodded and said helplessly, we secretly arranged for you to be in danger without Awakening Heaven sect's participation. We wanted to see if your mother and sect leader Grand Elder would appear and save you. If not, we would let young Master Xing, who was guarding by the side, save you and not let you die. Then we would create more danger. Chapter 1255. TSK, so that's how it is. You guys have really put in a lot of effort. I think you can act in an Infernal Affairs movie. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and said sarcastically. Behind him, Jiao Muzhen, Qing Menjing, and the other women also showed a look of contempt at the same time. Obviously, they did not have a good impression of the so-called Grand Supreme Elder. In order to lure out the Grand Supreme sect leader and Xiao Chen's mother, he actually did such a despicable thing to Xiao Chen and had to pretend to be innocent. This person was really bad. Lady Xing also frowned slightly. She knew that she was sent to spy on Xiao Chen to lure out a person, but she did not know that there was such a big game of chess behind the scenes. She also did not expect that she would indirectly become the Grand Supreme Elder's accomplice, and almost caused Xiao Chen's death a few times. She could not help but feel a little guilty in her heart. We were also forced to. In the face of Xiao Chen's sarcasm, Elder Son did not dare to refute. He could only smile apologetically and said, don't be fooled by the fact that sect leader Qi Tian is usually very energetic and prestigious in the inner martial arts world. In fact, he is just a chess piece in the hands of the Grand Supreme Elder, and I am just an errand boy. Naturally, I would not dare to openly disobey the order. Then Situ Qitian's plan to restart the immortal cultivation world was also suggested by the Grand Supreme Elder, right? Is he not afraid of the Grand Supreme sect leader coming back for revenge? Xiao Chen ignored Elder Son's humble flattery and asked indifferently. After so many tests on you, the Supreme sect leader didn't show up again. So, we speculated that he might have died or left the inner martial arts world. That's why the Supreme sect leader made up his mind to restart the plan. Elder Son spread his hands and answered in a very natural manner. In fact, Elder Son was also very afraid that the Grand Supreme sect leader would appear again, but after all, the Grand Supreme Elder was now the person in charge of Qi Tian's sect, so he could only do as he was told. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, by the way, what was the situation with the Devil Sect leader election in the outer martial arts world? At first, Ma Wuxia of the Kuei Mountain Sect didn't agree to let me be the sect master of the Devil Sect. Why did he agree later? Thinking of the matter regarding the demon sect master, Xiao Chen felt that it was a little strange. After he became the sect master, those people's attitudes seemed to have changed a few times. Could it be that the Supreme Elder of Awakening sect was playing tricks behind the scenes? That matter was naturally done to lure out the Supreme Sect Master. Elder Sun sighed and said, in addition to being the sect master of Qitian sect, Hao Tian is also the sect master of the dark sect in the inner martial arts world. He is extremely overbearing and tough. If he knows about this, he will definitely not allow the outer martial arts world to have another sect master of the dark sect. It seems that in order to lure out that Situ Haotian, aside from dealing with me, you also came up with a lot of tricks. Xiao Chen said with a faint smile. At first, we didn't expect that you would be involved in this matter. Elder Sun glanced at Xiao Chen and said helplessly, at that time, we thought that if that idiot Ma Wuxia became the sect master, the supreme sect master might appear out of rage. But if you were the sect master, because of your mother's relationship, the supreme sect master might very likely turn a blind eye to it. Xiao Chen suddenly understood. No wonder Ma Wuxia was so unhappy when he became the sect master of the devil sect. At first, he thought that he only obstructed his path to becoming the sect master of the devil sect. He didn't expect that he had obstructed their plan. Thinking about how Ma Wuxia took the initiative to flatter him later, it was probably because he didn't want the supreme sect master to see that they had a dispute with him. Otherwise, if he was accidentally killed, they would be punished by the supreme sect master for revenge. Thinking back, when little Miss Xing first appeared, on the surface, she was always going against him. However, when Ma Baobao was blinded by revenge for his son's death and chased after him, she was protecting him in the dark. Thinking about it, other than being worried that he would really be killed, she was also afraid of accidentally offending the supreme sect leader, so she did this. After going back and forth for a long time, Xiao Chen finally understood what was going on. It seemed that the tyrannical and selfish supreme sect master had gone to the immortal cultivation world and became so arrogant. He didn't want others to also gain strength, so he gave the order not to restart the immortal cultivation world project. Unfortunately, the supreme sect master was not a person who knew his place. After the supreme sect master went out for a period of time, he secretly set up a battle array and secretly used Xiao Chen as a chess piece to test the waters. At the same time, he also used other methods to lure Situ Haotian out. After trying many times, the Grand Supreme Elder found that no matter how he jumped, the Grand Supreme Sect leader never appeared, so he gradually let down his guard and made up his mind to restart the world of cultivation plan, so that he could also go in and show off. However, because he didn't have the experience of predecessors, the Supreme Sect Master was afraid that if he went in rashly, there would be unpredictable situations. Therefore, he arranged for disciples to explore the way first, but in the end, no one came back. Although he failed to explore the way, he was not willing to give up, so he created a cyborg experiment. He joined forces with the three big families to capture people everywhere, causing the whole martial arts world and the secular world to be in a state of panic and unrest. All of this was just to satisfy his selfish desires. The more Xiao Chen thought about it, the angrier he got. He didn't expect that there would be a group of people above Situ Qitian. This was 2F** King Bad *SS. He thought that as long as he got rid of Qi Tian men, the whole thing would end. In the end, he didn't expect that a clown like the Supreme Sect Master would appear. What's the strength of your Supreme Sect Master? He could subdue Situ Qitian and control the entire Qi Tian men, so he should be more than a 10th level perfected martial venerable, right? Xiao Chen suppressed his anger and asked calmly. He's really quite powerful. At the mention of the Supreme Sect Master, Elder Sun's expression became a little unnatural. He looked very afraid and said hesitantly, logically speaking, he should also be a perfected martial venerable expert. After all, this is the highest level in the martial arts world. If he wants to break through to a higher level, he must go to the immortal cultivation world to find an opportunity, Elder Sun paused for a moment and turned back to look at the collapsed formation. Then, he turned back to look at Xiaochen fearfully and continued, however, our sect master Qi Tian couldn't even last one move against him. The reason why he stopped was because Elder Sun suddenly realized that apart from the Supreme Sect Master, there was another person who was equally terrifying. That was Xiaochen in front of him. Wasn't Situ Qitian also sent flying by a slap from Xiaochen? Moreover, he couldn't even see how strong Xiaochen was. How powerful was he? Chapter 1256. Xiaochen didn't notice Elder Sun's pause. Instead, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, this Grand Supreme Elder does seem to have some ability. Could it be that he's also a cultivator? Is he on the same level as me? But if he's a cultivator, it's impossible for there to be no signs at all. Secretly shaking his head, Xiaochen gave up on the idea of letting little Lady Xing return to Qi Tian's sect alone to investigate the situation. If he let little Lady Xing return alone, her strength was still shallow and he didn't know if the other party already had any suspicions, so there would definitely be danger. Forget it, it's better to let her follow me. It's safer this way. I'll wait for that Grand Supreme Elder to take the initiative to find me. That's right, where is your Grand Supreme Elder now? Xiaochen pondered for a moment and felt that it was better to understand more about the Grand Supreme Elder. Otherwise, he would be in the dark while he was in the light. This guy was so cunning. If the people around him were to be attacked again, it would be troublesome. I'm not too sure about this. Elder Sun shook his head and said helplessly, he rarely shows himself. I heard that he hides in seclusion in the sect all year round. Even I don't have the qualifications to come into contact with him. Oh. Then who does he usually meet with? Xiaochen raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect this old thing to be so arrogant. He only communicates with Qi Tian's sect leader. Then, through Qi Tian's sect leader, he conveys information to us and assigns tasks. Elder Sun explained obediently. Xiaochen had already guessed this answer. Hearing this, he continued to ask, if that's the case, then you should know where he is in seclusion, right? This. I'm really not too sure. Qi Tian's sect leader has never told us. Elder Sun shook his head again. He himself had only heard of this Grand Supreme Elder. He didn't know anything else. You don't know this and you don't know that. Are you even an elder of Qi Tian's sect? You're just a bystander, right? Do you want me to help you loosen your muscles and improve your memory? Xiaochen saw that Elder Sun didn't know anything and fiercely bared his teeth at him. Xiao. Hero Xiao, I really don't know. Elder Sun was so scared that his legs went soft, and he almost knelt down. He explained with a sobbing tone, Sect Master Qi Tian's deterrent power is already very great. That Grand Elder is much more powerful than Sect Master. Even if I have more curiosity and doubts in my heart, I don't dare to ask too much. If I accidentally annoy them, wouldn't I have to bear the consequences? Xiaochen glared at Elder Sun, but he didn't really hit him. After all, Xiaochen knew that this guy was telling the truth. He could only sigh inwardly, feeling a headache coming on. If he couldn't uncover the Great Elder, then little Miss Xing wouldn't be able to officially take over Awakening Heaven sect. If that happened, then it would definitely affect his next plan. There were 3 big aristocratic families and 1 big demonic sect. Other than the Tang family and the Yu family, the Jia family had basically become Xiaochen's left and right arms. Awakening Heaven sect, with little Miss Xing, could barely be considered their own power. As for the Tang and Yu families, after the 2 old patriarchs saw the situation, they would naturally not do anything stupid. If they didn't, they would be beaten up a few times and they would be well behaved. Now, the only thing that Xiaochen was worried about was the Grand Elder of Awakening Heaven sect. This old fellow was simply a ticking time bomb. Moreover, he didn't know when he would suddenly explode. After hearing the ins and outs of Elder Sun's story, Xiaochen knew that sooner or later, he would have to make a trip to the immortal cultivation world to find his father. During this period of time, he absolutely couldn't allow the Grand Elder to act recklessly in the immortal cultivation world. If he went to the immortal cultivation world and had no time to spare, then this old thing would take the opportunity to do something unfavorable to the Jia family and little Miss Xing. If that happened, then he would really be at a loss. Ding dong ding dong. Just as Xiao Chen was in a dilemma and felt that his hands were tied, a sound suddenly came from Elder Sun's body. Everyone present was stunned for a moment. Elder Sun was the first to react. He quickly took out a tablet and quickly tapped on the screen a few times. Xiao Chen's thoughts were suddenly interrupted. He couldn't help but angrily stare at Elder Sun and said sinisterly, "The one with the surname Sun, I realize that you are quite broad-minded. At this time, you still have the mood to go online and date? You are really leisurely." Elder Sun was so frightened by Xiao Chen's killing intent that he trembled violently. The tablet in his hand almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, his eyes and hands were sharp and he grabbed it in time. "That. Hero Xiao, it's not what you think." Elder Sun smiled and explained, "This tablet is connected to the camera on the body of the cyborgs. I originally thought that the array had collapsed and the camera could not be connected. I didn't expect that there would be a signal now. Therefore, I wanted to quickly see the movements of the cyborgs and observe the situation in the immortal cultivation world." "Oh. This thing can still be used? Come, let me see the situation inside." Xiao Chen immediately walked over, took the tablet, and carefully stared at the image on the screen. Cheng Menjing and Tang Tang immediately walked over to see if they could find any key clues from the camera. On the other side, Old Master Tang and Old Master Yu also wanted to see the situation in the immortal cultivation world. However, they were afraid of Xiao Chen's power, so they hesitated for a few steps and did not have the courage to walk over. In order to smoothly capture the situation in the immortal cultivation world, Qi Tianmen had equipped all the cyborgs that entered the transmission array with professional cameras. At this time, the screen of the tablet had been separated into more than a dozen pictures by software. Just like the surveillance cameras in the building, each picture was showing a different image. As each camera was installed on the chest of the cyborgs, the angle of the recording could only show the scene in front of the cyborgs. There were no recording tools for the cyborgs themselves, so it was impossible to tell who was taking the video. Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing also could not find the familiar figure in the video. What was even more ridiculous was that after Xiao Chen got the tablet, he only looked at it for a few seconds before all the images on the screen suddenly became more and more blurry. Not long after, the entire screen was filled with snowflakes. It looked like an old-fashioned television that couldn't receive any signal. Damn! What kind of stupid thing did you buy? Xiao Chen clicked on the screen a few times in confusion, but still found that there was no response. How can this be a broken toy? This is the original Applejack. Elder Sun was originally sticking his head out to take a look, but when he heard Xiao Chen's words, he immediately retorted. After turning it over to take a look, Xiao Chen found that there was really an Apple logo on the back of the tablet. Chapter 1257. Xiao Chen could not help but furrow his brows as he asked, "Mr. Sun, could this tablet of yours be a counterfeit? I haven't looked at it for a while, why can't the image be displayed?" No way. I bought this iPad from abroad, and I even have a formal receipt. How can our awakening sect lack this little money?" Elder Sun was taken aback. At first, he didn't quite believe it. He thought that Xiao Chen had done something to blackmail him. He quickly stretched his head to take a look and found that there was really no image on the screen. Xiao Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly handed over the tablet, crossed his arms in front of his chest, stared at Elder Sun with anger, and said coldly, "Don't look at it blindly. Hurry up and fix this thing, or I'll twist your head off and kick it like a ball." Elder Sun carefully held the tablet in his hand. He first pressed the refresh button a few times and found that it didn't work, so he turned off the software. After a while, he turned it back on again. The result was still the same. There was no image on the screen, and it was still a vast expanse of snowflakes. At his wit's end, Elder Sun had to display the usual routine of the secular world's network management. He first turned off the tablet, then took out the wireless network card inside, carefully checked it, wiped the dust, then inserted it back in, and turned it back on. Looking at the tablet screen gradually brightening, Elder's son silently prayed in his heart, hoping that there would be no more problems. After turning it on, Elder's son immediately opened the software, but to his disappointment, the monitoring screen was still the same. He couldn't receive any signal at all, only a snowflake rain. "You've been fiddling with it for a long time. Is it done? It can't be the same as before, right?" Looking at Elder's son clumsily fiddling for a while, Xiao Chen, who was waiting at the side, was a little bored, so he impatiently urged. "This. Xiao Daxia, I've studied it and don't think it's the tablet's problem. It's probably that the signal in the cultivation world is cut off and can't be transmitted back, which causes this phenomenon," Elder's son concluded. Just now, Elder's son used another software to open a web page and found that the network was very smooth. After switching back to the monitoring software, he tried to refresh the screen a few times, but there was still no screen. He had no choice but to give up. Hearing Elder's son's words, Tang family head and Yu family head's expressions were a little disappointed. Who would have thought that the perfect plan that they had painstakingly prepared for so many years would be ruined just like that? Jia Yuto also hung his head dejectedly as if his father had died. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of this plan to enter the world of cultivators and properly increase his strength. Then, he would replace Jia Jinyan and become the person in charge of the Jia clan. At that time, he would kick Jia Muzan away and replace him with his own son. In the end, he did not expect that after such a long time, the teleportation circle would be destroyed, and there would be no news of the biohumans. Not only did he gain nothing, but the spiritual jades used to teleport the biohumans were also wasted. Communication devices could not be contacted for the time being, and everyone was a little unwilling. However, the people from the three big families still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. After all, no matter what, Situ Chitian had also entered the world of cultivators. Even if it was unknown whether he was dead or alive, they believed that he would not be directly destroyed by a slap from Xiao Chen, right? As long as Situ Chitian could enter the world of cultivators, he would be considered an expert with the strength of a venerable paragon. After the injury from that slap from Xiao Chen had healed, he might even be able to obtain some benefits in the world of cultivators. At that time, he might even be able to safely return to the internal martial arts world. Although Situ Chitian could no longer be teleported out after the teleportation circle here was destroyed, these people did not take this to heart. Since the world of cultivators was so powerful, he should be able to return through other means. If there was really no other way, then wouldn't it be fine to create another teleportation circle here? Although those people were hoping to get lucky, Xiao Chen no longer had the patience to continue waiting. He felt that there was not much use just waiting here foolishly. Besides, he did not know what the hell the world of cultivators was. Although Xiao Chen wanted to go in immediately to find his father's whereabouts, he had other things to do at the moment. He had to arrange everything properly. Xiao Chen was not a person who cared about his head and ignored his tail. He could not abandon everyone and leave. At least now he knew that there was a supreme elder in Qi Tian's sect. Now that he had understood the situation, Xiao Chen did not intend to keep this old guy and let him play some tricks behind his back. Otherwise, if he did not care about it, it would definitely be bad in the future. Xiao Chen looked at Xing Chik and began to assign tasks. Xing Gongzi, you follow me to Qi Tian's sect and find that supreme elder. I want to meet this old bastard and see how powerful he is. Since the decision had been made, Xiao Chen was too lazy to continue wasting time here. If these people were willing to wait, then let them be. Anyway, the teleportation circle had been completely destroyed. In a short period of time, he was not afraid of what they would do. Oh, okay. Xing Chik nodded obediently. Xing Chik originally had a grudge against Qi Tian's sect for using her countless times. She wanted to ask for an explanation. When she heard that Xiao Chen was willing to bring her along, she was a little excited and immediately agreed. Menjing, you and Jia Muzan will stay here first. Help me keep an eye on these old guys. If they dare to act blindly without thinking, Xiao Chen touched his chin and glanced back and forth between Elder Sun and the Tang family patriarchs, as well as Jia Yudo, who was hiding in the back and pretending not to be there. Hero Xiao, we will definitely not act blindly without thinking. We will wait here for Qi Tian's sect leader to come out. We will not do anything else. Family patriarch Tang was a little flustered and quickly waved his hand. Tian Suruan, on the other hand, was eager to get into action. She waved her little fist and shouted, "Husband Xiao Chen, tell us. How are we going to deal with them? Do we beat them up or tie them up and hang them on a tree? Sister Suruan is the best at doing these things. Forget it. With your cultivation, you really can't do anything to them for a while. I'll be more straightforward and cripple these people's cultivation first, so that they won't think too much and cause trouble again." Xiao Chen thought for a while, lifted his foot and walked over to Elder Sun and the others with a smirk. "Xiao. Hero Xiao, let's talk things out. Why do you always have to resort to violence?" Elder Sun was almost scared to death. He had also suffered a lot in order to reach his current cultivation. When he heard that Xiao Chen was going to cripple him, he felt that the whole sky was going to collapse. Chapter 1258. Family Head Yu also lowered his voice and said, "That's right, great hero Xiao, don't worry. We promise we won't do anything. Besides, although we aren't the most influential people in the inner martial arts world, we are still famous people. We don't have any grudges against your friends. No matter what, we won't do anything to them and ruin our own reputations." Yes, Xiao Xiao. Great hero Xiao, we are only interested in the world of cultivators. We definitely won't make things difficult for your friends. Family head Tang immediately nodded and added. After seeing Xiao Chen send Situ Qi Tian flying, they were very afraid of his strength. If Xiao Chen didn't cause trouble for them, they would already be thanking the heavens and earth. How would they dare to take the initiative to provoke Qing Menjing and the others? Wouldn't that be the same as eating a bear's heart and a leopard's gall? Hiding at the back, Jia Yudo's small face was deathly pale. He didn't even dare to let out a fart. He lowered his head and didn't make a sound. With his current strength, he couldn't even be considered as a bystander. If it weren't for the other two family heads insisting on staying, he would have already slipped away. "Oh, all right, then I'll trust you this once." Only then did Xiao Chen stop in his tracks. He swept his cold gaze across the crowd and suddenly unleashed a boundless aura. He warned them word by word, "You'd better not act recklessly. Otherwise, I'll definitely remove Awakening Heaven Gate, Tang Clan, and Yu Clan from the pugilistic world." Their backs were drenched in cold sweat, and their legs were trembling like sifting chaff. They nodded with great difficulty. Seeing that his warning was effective, Xiao Chen retracted his aura and turned around to say a few words to Qing Menjing and Jia Muzhen. He also reminded Jia Tuyao and the other girls to pay attention to their safety. Then, he took Xing Girl and mounted Bai Zai, preparing to set off for Qi Tian's sect. Bai Zai took 2 steps forward, and before Elder Sun and the others could breathe a sigh of relief, Xiao Chen suddenly stopped. After thinking for a moment, he turned around and walked back to Elder Sun's side. Taking advantage of Elder Sun's moment of shock, Xiao Chen reached out and picked him up. Hanging him by the side of the spiritual beast, he calmly said, "Since you have nothing to do here, you might as well come with me. Let's go and be a witness for the new sect master of Awakening Heaven sect, Xing Gongzi." This is not appropriate. In fact, Hero Xiao only needs to go by yourself. Elder Sun was just about to refuse, but before he could finish his words, he felt his vision blur. A strong gust of wind blew past, and the surrounding flowers and trees instantly flew past him. At that moment, Elder Sun felt as if he was flying in the sky. He was so frightened that even his voice became distorted. His entire body stiffened as he stuck to the side of the bay's spiritual beast. He did not dare to move at all, afraid that he would accidentally fall and be smashed into meat paste. Under Xiao Chen's command, the bay's spiritual beast shuttled back and forth in the inner martial world at its fastest speed. Because it usually lived in the Venerable One's secret realm, the Bay's spiritual beast was very curious about the outside world. It did not honestly hurry along its journey. Sometimes, it would suddenly burrow into the forest for a stroll, and when it came out, it would still be chewing on some unknown herbs. Sometimes, it would huff and puff as it climbed up a small hill, and then quickly rush down. It was having a great time. The Bay's spiritual beast was playing happily, so Xiaoqun did not pay it too much attention. In any case, he was already used to this stupid spiritual beast's behavior. Instead, he heard elder son's cries of surprise from time to time, which made him feel a little noisy. 4 hours passed, and the Bay's spiritual beast gradually slowed down. Finally, it steadily stopped outside the open heaven gate. After estimating the time, Xiaoqun was shocked from the bottom of his heart. He did not think that using this fellow to replace the flying sword would actually save him a lot of time. Furthermore, this fellow was playing all over the place. It could be seen how fast it was running. However, the one who suffered the most was Elder Sunday. He had been hanging on the side of the spiritual beast the whole time, and his eyes, ears, nose, and throat were all filled with cold wind. At this moment, he only felt that his eyes were seeing stars, and even his hair was blowing backwards. His clothes were tattered, and his body was covered with bruises. It was obvious that he had been hit quite hard on the road. Xiaoqun swung his arm and first threw Elder Sun to the side of the road. Then, he supported little girl Xing and jumped off the horse's back. He rushed to Elder Sun and ordered, "Quickly, go and call all the disciples of the open heaven gate. First, come and see the new sect leader, Xing Gongzi. Then, bring me to find the Grand Elder and see where that old thing is hiding." Okay. Okay, I'll go and find them. Blarg. Elder Sun stood up in a daze, and swayed back and forth a few steps on the side of the road. Before he could find the open heaven gate, he suddenly felt his stomach turn upside down. His legs went soft, and he knelt on the side of the road and began to vomit. What a useless thing. I let you experience the speed of a high-level spiritual beast for free, but you still got carsick. No, you got carsick from the spiritual beast. You're still a venerable expert? You're simply trash. You really don't have a good life. Xiaoqun coldly ridiculed. Although this was the case, Xiaoqun could not do anything to Elder Sunday. He could only stand far away with little girl Xing and wait for this fellow to finish vomiting. Little girl Xing covered her nose in disgust and looked at Elder Sun with disdain. Then, she took a step further away. It was obvious that she could not stand this disgusting smell and wanted to find a place to breathe. Who is it? How dare you behave so atrociously in the open heaven gate? Are you tired of living? Elder Sun's vomiting quickly attracted the attention of a group of patrolling guards. The leader of the guards walked over with large strides and a face full of vigilance. However, just as he finished asking, he felt that the person kneeling on the ground was a little familiar. After carefully looking at him, he realized that this person was wearing tattered clothes and had a body full of scars. He looked like a beggar. Wasn't this Elder Sun from his own sect? Son. Elder Sun? What's wrong with you? What happened? Do you want me to find a doctor for you? The leader of the guards asked in shock. No. There's no need. Go and gather all the disciples. I have an important matter to announce to everyone. Blarg. Elder Sun waved his hand and struggled to finish what he had to say. His stomach churned again, and with a wah sound, he continued to vomit. All right, I'll go now. The leader of the guards frowned slightly. Although he felt that it was a little inappropriate for Elder Sun to vomit outside the sect's gate, he was only an ordinary disciple and did not dare to disobey the great elder's orders. He immediately turned around and ran towards the gate, preparing to enter the open heaven gate to call for help. Chapter 1259. After a while, all the disciples and elders of Awakening Heaven sect had gathered at the square. Everyone was in groups and discussing in low voices. They were very confused about the current situation. After all, the sect had never gathered everyone together in the past. Could it be that something big had happened? Seeing that everyone in the sect had gathered, Elder Sun, who was squatting at the side, hurriedly circulated his demonic chi and forcefully suppressed the restlessness in his stomach. He stood up and staggered to the front of everyone. He took a few deep breaths and tried to calm his emotions. Xiao Chen and Xing Las naturally followed him. The former looked relaxed and carefree, but the latter looked a little nervous and her heart was a little perturbed. After all, she was about to be promoted from an ordinary disciple to the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. She was still a little uncomfortable and didn't know how to face the upcoming situation. Xiao Chen looked back at Xing Las and smiled. He rubbed her head, indicating that he was here and there was no need to be afraid. Disciples of Awakening Heaven sect, listen up. Elder Sun took a deep breath and announced loudly, because sect leader Situ has entered the immortal cultivation world to train in seclusion, he may not return in a short period of time. Therefore, before entering the immortal cultivation world, he has already officially passed the position of sect leader to Xing Gongzi. From today onwards, Xing Gongzi will be in charge of all the affairs of Awakening Heaven sect. No way, isn't sect leader Situ's decision a little too casual? How can the dignified position of Awakening Heaven sect leader be passed to an ordinary disciple like Xing Gongzi? That's right. Whether it is experience or strength, this old man far surpasses Xing Gongzi. If she is really going to be the sect leader, this old man will be the first to refuse. I also refuse. In the past, I have contributed so much to Awakening Heaven sect. Why didn't the sect remember it and let this little lass be the sect leader? I want the sect to have a fair election. Start over. That's right. Who would be willing to work for a little lass who is still wet behind her ears? It's more like she is my wife. If she becomes the sect leader, I think Awakening Heaven sect will be finished. You are almost a year older than her and you still have the nerve to ask her to be your wife? Let me do it. Just as Elder Sun finished his announcement, the disciples and elders of the Awakening Heaven sect all exploded in anger. One after another, they raised all kinds of objections. The entire square was a boiling cauldron of voices and resentment. Almost no one agreed to let little girl Xing become the sect master. There were even people who jumped out and directly challenged little Miss Xing. They wanted to have a one-on-one duel with her. Whoever won would become the next sect leader. Just as the disciples were about to start an internal strife, a few flashes of blue lightning suddenly lit up. Without giving anyone time to react, they immediately flew into the crowd of disciples and struck the loudest ones. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, ah. Several extremely miserable screams came from the crowd. Those who were struck by the lightning had no ability to resist and directly fell to the ground, twitching all over and foaming at the mouth. The other disciples who were temporarily safe and sound immediately retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. In an instant, a few empty spaces appeared in the square. In the middle of the spaces were the disciples who were struck by the lightning. The remaining people watched helplessly as their screams turned into silence. Not long after, they were charred black by the lightning and curled up motionlessly. They could not be more dead. Is there anyone else who is unconvinced or wants to fight one-on-one? As your sect master Xing's personal bodyguard, I will accompany you to the end. Just as the disciples were stunned by the scene in front of them, a low and intimidating voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned their heads in unison and saw Xiao Chen holding 2 balls of lightning in his hands. He stared at them expressionlessly. Seeing that everyone's attention had been attracted, Xiao Chen circulated his yuan qi and released a powerful pressure from his body, spreading it out towards the crowd in front of him. Before the Awakening Heaven sect disciples could tell what strength Xiao Chen had, they suddenly felt a strong sense of suffocation. It was as if a huge hand was gripping their necks or their chests were heavily smashed by a boulder. They saw stars and could not breathe. Looking at the 2 crackling balls of lightning in Xiao Chen's hands and feeling the unparalleled pressure, some of the weaker disciples quickly could not hold on. Their faces turned pale, their legs went limp, and they directly collapsed to the ground. As for the other disciples who had already broken through to the martial venerable realm, they were also struggling. They clenched their fists tightly as they bitterly endured the pressure released by Xiao Qin. They did not dare to slack off in the slightest, afraid that they would fall to the ground in embarrassment like the low-level disciples if they were not careful. All the disciples had a question in their hearts. Who was this guy? Although they could not see his strength, the pressure he released was even more powerful than their sect leader Situ Qitian. It was simply too heaven-defying. Just as the disciples were feeling anxious and trying to figure out what to do, Xiao Qin looked around and felt that he had more or less established his might. He still had to pass the authority to Xing Biki, so he withdrew the lightning ball in his hand and the pressure that had spread out. The Awakening Heaven sect disciples all heaved a sigh of relief. Those who were lying on the ground could finally get up, but they still did not dare to dust off their bodies. They could only stand there with their heads lowered. Now, who else has any objections? Anyone who wants to challenge me? Xiao Qin waited for a while, and seeing that no one spoke, he said in a deep voice, "Since none of you have any objections, then be a little more obedient for this young master. Listen carefully to sect leader Xing's instructions for the next mission. Whoever dares to be impudent and disrespectful to sect leader Xing will end up like these charred corpses on the ground." The entire plaza was silent. After hearing Xiao Qin's warning, not a single Awakening Heaven sect disciple dared to act recklessly. They all stood in place obediently and did not make a sound. No matter what, strength was the best right to speak. Moreover, the corpses on the ground were too ghastly. Just a glance at them would cause people to feel fear for no reason. "Xiao Qin, thank you." Xing girl looked gratefully at Xiao Qin and said softly. Although little chick Xing had always felt that Xiao Qin had a glib tongue and wasn't a proper person, when she encountered trouble, he would be the first to step forward and block in front of her, blocking those messy matters. This made little chick Xing's impression of him immediately increase by a lot. Xiao Qin shook his head slightly, then raised his chin and pointed at the Awakening Heaven sect disciples in front of him, who did not even dare to breathe loudly. He indicated that Xing girl did not need to take it to heart and that they should first deal with the people in front of them. Chapter 1260. Little girl Xing furrowed her brows and thought for a while. She didn't know what to say and softly asked for help. "Xiao Qin, what should I do next? I've never been a sect leader before, so I don't have much experience. Furthermore, many of the people here are more experienced than I am. I don't know how to give them orders." "Oh, it's very simple." Xiao Qin shrugged his shoulders and replied in a low voice, "You just need to let them search the entire Qi Tian sect and see if there's a secret room suitable for closed-door cultivation. That way, we can find that Grand Elder." Xiao Qin wasn't too interested in managing Qi Tian sect. His current goal was to support little girl Xing and let her successfully become the sect leader. This would remove the threat that Qi Tian sect posed to him and the people around him. Then, he would get rid of that malignant Grand Elder. All right." Little girl Xing nodded her head and took a deep breath. She took 2 steps forward and swept her gaze across everyone present. She cleared her throat and pretended to be dignified as she loudly said, "Everyone, there's no need to be too nervous. As long as you obediently listen to my orders, I will naturally not punish any of you. Now, I will pass on my first order to all of you." Little girl Xing's crisp voice reverberated throughout the plaza. Although the disciples who had their heads lowered felt that it was strange for her to call herself the sect leader, they didn't dare to say anything. There was still a demon glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey. "Next, you will search the entire sect in detail. Look for any secret passageways or seclusion points. If you find anything suspicious, or if you discover any traces of strangers, report to me as soon as possible." Little Miss Xing waved her hand and gave the order to search the sect. After everyone heard this, they were slightly stunned. They looked at each other in dismay and didn't know where to start. Besides, wasn't this a little too strange? Why did the new sect leader want them to search for these strange things? Logically, shouldn't the sect leader know everything that happened in the sect like the back of his hand? Could it be that there was something fishy about this? After a short moment of silence, the group of disciples had already split up. Some of the more quick-witted ones had already loudly received their orders and obediently turned around to carry out Xing Zhao's orders. At this time, they already understood that Xing Gongzi would have the final say in Qi Tian Gate from now on. After all, she had such a powerful backer by her side. She could send people on their way at any time. What capital did they have to resist? If he followed through and found what Xing Gongzi needed, he might even have a chance to advance or obtain more cultivation resources. As for some of the more inflexible disciples, they were still standing in the square, hesitating. They didn't know whether they should obey or question. What's wrong with you guys? Why are you still in a daze? Are you waiting for sect leader Xing to give you a red packet? Xiaochen glared at them and said coldly, why are you still here? Hurry up and get to work. If you don't find what sect leader Xing needs before the sky turns dark, then wait for someone to collect your corpses. Yes, yes. The disciples who were originally in a dilemma suddenly quivered. They thought of Xiao Chen's demonic methods and naturally didn't dare to be negligent. They were so scared that they scattered like birds and beasts, one after another, ran towards the various rooms in the sect. As Qi Tian Gate was the #1 sect of the inner martial world's demonic cultivators, not only did it occupy a vast area, it also had hundreds of houses. They were located in different places and were surrounded by green mountains and green water. It made people feel relaxed and happy. Even though the environment was very beautiful, if one wanted to find something, it would make people scratch their heads. There were many Awakening Heaven sect disciples, all of them spread out to search, but it still took them close to 4 hours to search the entire sect. After searching one round, the disciples found nothing. Apart from a few secret rooms that stored heavenly treasures, they didn't find any other secluded places, let alone any strangers. Have you all checked clearly? Are you sure you didn't miss anything? After listening to the last disciple's report, little girl Xing couldn't help but frown. Could it be that the Grand Elder knew that Xiaochen was going to find trouble with him, so he ran away in advance? Replying to sect leader Xing, the disciples have already searched the sect many times. There really isn't any other abnormal place. An elder bowed with a bitter face and carefully reported. Hero Xiao, what do you think next? Elder Sun finally calmed down and stood to the side with an awkward expression. After all, they couldn't find any traces of the Grand Elder. Xiaochen definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. He could only carefully ask for the opinion of this fiend. However, before Elder Sun could finish speaking, Xiaochen waved his hand impatiently and interrupted him. Then, he glared at him and said, the one with the surname Sun, are you not taking sect master Xing seriously? He is the true sect leader of your sect. Why the hell are you asking me? Elder Sun jumped in fright. Only now did he realize that his actions were a bit inappropriate. After all, little girl Xing was only a low-level disciple that ran errands for him. Now that she had suddenly become his direct superior, it was a bit hard to switch roles. Really, you don't even have the slightest bit of eyesight. Don't tell me you gave your chrysanthemum to Situ Qitian in exchange for this position? Xiaochen snorted and coldly mocked. Pfft. As soon as Xiaochen finished speaking, many of the disciples in the plaza couldn't help but laugh. Normally, they had all been bullied by Elder Sunday. Now that they saw him being humiliated in front of Xiaochen, their moods immediately became much better. Their original fear also gradually dissipated. Although Elder Sun was so angry that his lungs were about to explode, he didn't dare to act rashly. He could only forcefully suppress the anger in his heart. Turning his head, he respectfully bowed to little girl Xing and asked, Sect leader Xing, what do you think we should do next? How about this? I think these disciples didn't search carefully enough. Why don't we just let them search again? Elder Sun naturally knew that the people below him were laughing at him. Although he couldn't punish them in front of everyone, he could choose to use another method to teach these disciples a lesson. Small things, I can't beat Xiaochen, but do you think I can't deal with you guys? The disciples who were already dissatisfied with Elder Sun had their eyes blazing with anger when they heard these words. They wanted nothing more than to slap elder son to death. Wasn't he clearly trying to torment them? What AF * king piece of trash. Xiao Chen, how about, we do as elder son said and let everyone search carefully again. Little girl Xing didn't have any ideas of her own and turned to Xiao Chen for help. Chapter 1261. Little chick Xing still hadn't gotten used to her identity as the sect leader. She was also clueless about how to deal with the following tasks. Her mind was blank, and she couldn't think of any other way. Oh, forget it. There's no need for that. I'll try other methods. I should be able to find that old bastard's hiding place. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and directly released his divine sense to cover the entire Qi Tian sect. He carefully checked every place. Xiao Chen could also see that the disciples of Qi Tian's sect were somewhat resentful. However, their main target was elder son, so he didn't intend to be too ruthless. After all, little chick Xing still had to be in charge of this sect in the future. It wouldn't do to be unpopular. It was better to let those disciples secretly hate elder son in their hearts. However, when Xiao Chen said this, elder son immediately gritted his teeth in anger. Just now, when he asked Xiao Chen for instructions, this guy insisted that he ask little chick Xing. Now that he turned around, little chick Xing went to ask Xiao Chen. This was simply an unnecessary move. Maybe Xiao Chen just wanted to take the opportunity to humiliate him. Although he was angry, elder son could only bear with it. Who asked him to be weak and his skills inferior to others? Elder son secretly swore that for now, he would temporarily act according to Xiao Chen and little chick Xing's mood. When Situ Qitian achieved great success in the immortal cultivation world and returned with glory, he would settle the score with these two people. So, you're hiding there. It's really a good place. No wonder no one can find you. Just as elder son's thoughts were running wild, Xiao Chen suddenly laughed coldly and muttered to himself. It turned out that Xiao Chen had already found the location of the Grand Elder. Just now, when he extended his divine sense into Situ Qitian's room, he finally found a secret seclusion spot behind the bookcase. Moreover, the hidden door behind the bookcase was equipped with a very complicated electronic password lock. Now, it made sense that those disciples couldn't find the secret room. They probably didn't dare to casually enter the sect master's room. Even if they did, they definitely wouldn't dare to mess around due to Situ Qitian's remaining prestige, which was why they returned empty-handed. Xiao Chen's spiritual awareness swept again and confirmed that there was really an old man sitting in the seclusion spot. He was not in a hurry and stood in the same place and stretched his waist. Xiao Chen, have you found it? Where is he? When little Miss Xing heard Xiao Chen's words, her face lit up with joy. She anxiously asked, "Do you want me to send a disciple to find him? Or should we go and find him directly? There's no need to go through all that trouble." Xiao Chen waved his hand, then turned in another direction and suddenly shouted in a loud voice, "Grand Elder, listen up. Situ Qitian, that old fellow, has already been played to death by me. Stop hiding and quickly get out of your seclusion. Otherwise, this young master will immediately burn the awakening heaven gate to ashes." Boom! Just as Xiao Chen's voice fell, a loud sound suddenly came from Situ Qitian's room. Then, a black figure broke through the window and shot towards Xiao Chen's direction. When it reached Xiao Chen, the black figure turned 2.5 times in the air before landing in front of Xiao Chen. The face was old, and the hair was white. It was the old man that Xiao Chen's spiritual awareness had detected previously. It was the Grand Elder who controlled Situ Qitian like a puppet. "The one shouting outside just now was you, kid?" The Grand Elder was dressed in black, and there was no extra expression on his face. His cold eyes swept over Xiao Chen and the others, then stopped on Elder Son for a while. He opened his mouth and asked in a hoarse voice, "Little son, what happened here? Situ Qitian was really killed by this kid? You are." Elder Son was stunned. He suddenly realized that the old man in front of him had a familiar feeling. After carefully looking at the old man's face, Elder Son exclaimed in surprise, "Master Gong Sun Yen. Is it really you? How is this possible? Back then, you left without saying goodbye. I thought you were already. It turned out that this old man was called Gongsun Yen. He was the master who taught Elder Sun back then. In the past, when Gongsun Yen was training in the secular world, he met Elder Sun by chance. At that time, Elder Sun was still a child who was bullied by everyone. When Gongsun Yen found him, he was being beaten up by a group of older children. The bored Gongsun Yen stood at the side and observed for a while. He found that although this kid was beaten black and blue, his muscles and bones were soft and good at avoiding fatal injuries. His heart moved and he saved him. After chatting with him for a while, Gongsun Yen found that his comprehension was good and could be considered a cultivation talent. Gongsun Yen brought him back to Open Heaven Gate and carefully taught him. He also took one of the Sun characters from the compound surname Gongsun as Elder Sun's new name. However, not long after, when Elder Sun's cultivation had finally reached a small level, Gongsun Yen suddenly disappeared. From then on, he never appeared in the inner martial arts world again. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. In order to find his master, Elder Sun spent a year searching everywhere for his whereabouts. However, he did not get any results. Any information about this person was like a stone thrown into the sea. There was no response. Elder Sun thought that Gongsun Yen had already left the inner martial arts world, or that he had met with misfortune. He felt sad for a while because of this. He did not expect that Gongsun Yen would suddenly appear in front of him today. He could not help but feel excited. If you want to reminisce, let's talk about the past later. Gongsun Yen interrupted Elder Sun's surprised and happy words. He stared coldly at Xiao Chen, and a trace of haze flashed in his eyes. He asked Elder Sun, "Tell me first, what happened to this kid? Was he the one who killed Situ Qitian? Why are you staying with him?" Previously, Gongsun Yen had been cultivating in the seclusion spot. Suddenly, he had a faint feeling that he was being watched. He was just about to find Situ Qitian and ask him what was going on when he heard Xiao Chen's shout outside. He was shocked and angry. He immediately got up and rushed out. Before Elder Sun could continue, Xiao Chen pushed him to the side and stood up. He crossed his arms and said carelessly, "You old thing, you hid yourself pretty well. If it wasn't for me, you guys wouldn't have been able to find you. You killed Situ Qitian?" Gongsun Yen narrowed his eyes. He could not sense the strength of Xiao Chen. He was a little confused, so he asked again to confirm. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth twitched. He said slowly, "I might as well tell you the truth. That idiot Situ Qitian was indeed killed by this young master. If you don't want to die like him, then quickly destroy your own cultivation to show your sincerity. Otherwise, I will beat you up into a pig's head. You won't be able to embarrass yourself in front of your disciple." Chapter 1262. Ha ha ha. What an arrogant brat. Gongsun Yen laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at Xiao Chen with disdain and said, "You merely got rid of that bastard Situ Wuji. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of me? You're simply courting death." Before he finished speaking, Gongsun Yan's body shook and he instantly revealed his martial venerable perfection realm cultivation. He leaped into the air and swooped down towards Xiao Chen. He ruthlessly struck out with his palm, clearly intending to kill Xiao Chen on the spot. A thick demonic energy mixed with the whistling sound of the air breaking approached. Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed and he quickly determined Gongsun Yan's strength. This old thing was indeed not simple. Although he looked like he was only at the martial venerable perfection realm, in reality, he was already on the verge of breaking through. It was no wonder that Situ Qitian was far from being his match. "Old bastard, I think you've been in seclusion for too long. Your thinking has long become outdated." Xiao Chen sneered and looked at the approaching Gongsun Yen mockingly. "Now that the entire inner martial world is under my control, why wouldn't I dare to be presumptuous? You'd better go back and be a coward. Don't come out and find trouble for yourself." Faced with Gong Sun Yan's attack, Xiao Chen had no intention of dodging. After he finished speaking, he even had the time to let out a long yawn. Then, he casually struck out with his palm to meet Gong Sun Yan's palm. Bang! In the blink of an eye, both of their palms collided. Miss Xing stood at the side with an anxious expression. Her hands were twisted like fried dough twists, and her heart was in her throat. She could clearly feel that Gong Sun Yan's strength had definitely surpassed Situ Qitian's by too much. It might even be more than the martial venerable perfection realm. Thus, she was worried about Xiao Chen's reckless action. However, after the two of them landed on the ground, Miss Xing suddenly discovered that Gong Sun Yan's face had turned deathly pale and he was panting heavily. On the other hand, Xiao Chen had his arms crossed and a smile on his face as if nothing had happened. He was even humming a little tune, looking very relaxed. With this comparison, little girl Xing knew that Gong Sun Yan was definitely not Xiao Chen's match. Her heart finally calmed down and her expression relaxed quite a bit. Master. How are you feeling? Elder Sun also saw the clues and quickly ran over. He carefully supported Gong Sun Yan and stared at Xiao Chen vigilantly. He was afraid that Xiao Chen would take advantage of Gong Sun Yan's injury to launch a sneak attack. The one with the surname Sun, isn't your master's strength a little too weak? Xiao Chen whistled and casually teased, Master Xiao, I haven't even used my full strength yet, but he's already panting like a bull. What kind of Grand Supreme Elder of the number 1 evil sect in Wulin? Is that a lie? He's simply a piece of trash. Although that was what Xiao Chen said, he thought to himself that it was a close shave. If he had not been brought there by the Bey's spiritual beast and suffered the lightning tribulation, thereby benefiting from the misfortune and breaking through, he would have had to put in a lot more effort to deal with the Grand Supreme Elder. Xiao Chen. Master Xiao, as the saying goes, one should be lenient wherever possible. Since you've already taken advantage of me today and Qi Tian's sect has already made Xing Gongzi the sect leader, can you let my master live? Elder Sun had no choice but to lower his voice and say, I promise to take him away immediately and never step foot into Qi Tian's sect again. Elder Sun also knew that the situation was already hopeless. Even Gong Sun Yan, whom he had infinite respect for, was not a match for Xiao Chen. There was no point in staying here any longer. Bastard. When Gong Sun Yan heard Elder Sun's words, he immediately broke free from Elder Sun's supporting arm, stretched out his hand, and directly slapped Elder Sunday. He angrily scolded, Open Heaven sect relied on this old man's hard work to achieve today's achievements with great difficulty. But you, with just a few words, you want to hand it over to others? This old man will definitely not leave. If you want to leave, then leave by yourself. But master, right now, we are not a match for Xiao Chen. Staying here. Elder Sun still wanted to say a few more words, but Xiao Chen was too lazy to listen to their conversation. Without waiting for him to finish, he directly interrupted, Enough, the two of you stop acting. If you want to live, honestly answer a few of my questions. If the answers satisfy me, this young master can consider sparing 2 lives. Xiao Chen still wanted to use Gong Sun Yan to find out more about the cultivation world. Naturally, he would not easily kill him. Apart from this old thing should have some other value. After all, little girl Xing had just become the sect leader and there were many things that she was still clueless about. She had to let Elder Sun and Gong Sun Yan help her sort things out. Humph. Wishful thinking. Gong Sun Yan immediately straightened his back and put on an inviolable expression. He said in a serious tone, Little brat, this old man admits that my strength is not as high as yours. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't think that you can get any benefits from this old man. Let me tell you, this old man is also a person who has seen wind and waves. Gong Sun Yan still wanted to put on a brave front and display his unyielding spirit. However, halfway through his words, he felt his vision blur. Then, he suddenly received a slap to the face. The slap made him dizzy and see stars. Before Gong Sun Yan could even react, he was once again kicked away by Xiao Chen. His whole body fell backwards and landed on the ground like a wild goose falling on the sand. Then, he was immediately pressed down by Mount Tai. He was hit so hard that he almost died. Seeing that Gong Sun Yen hadn't even finished speaking before he was beaten up by Xiao Chen without any ability to resist, elder son was scared silly. After a long time, his body trembled and he recovered. He hurriedly ran over but didn't dare to pull Gong Sun Yen away. He could only beg politely, "Hero Xiao, please don't hit me. Let's talk this out." Xiao Chen heavily punched Gong Sun Yan's stomach again. Then, he stood up and sneered, "You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you said that earlier, you wouldn't have to suffer this beating." Gong Sun Yan's eyes rolled back and he lay on the ground, speechless for a long time. Xiao Chen's beating had made him lose all his temper. Now, he was as obedient as a rabbit. Seeing that he had finally beaten Gong Sun Yen into submission, Xiao Chen stared at him condescendingly and asked, "Let me ask you, what is the plan to enter the world of cultivators? And where are the Hong and Song families of the internal Wulin? I heard that they have set up a world of cultivators sacrifice. What is that for? Tell me everything you know. If you hide anything, you know what will happen to you." Cough, cough, cough. Gong Sun Yen coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and struggled to get up. He also knew that if he didn't answer Xiao Chen's questions today, it would probably not end well. Chapter 1263. In desperation, Gong Sun Yen endured the pain in his body and said, "Originally, the world of cultivators was only a rumor in the martial arts world. But later, someone accidentally found a way to enter the world of cultivators and rushed in. That person's strength was originally outstanding, and after a few years, he became even more powerful. He was invincible, so everyone yearned for that place." Gong Sun Yen honestly explained the matter of the world of cultivators. After listening, Xiao Chen nodded. He naturally knew that the person Gong Sun Yen was talking about was the supreme sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, Siddha Haotian. As for the other information about the world of cultivators, Gong Sun Yen and elder son had more or less the same. It was nothing more than the fact that he wanted to obtain the cultivation resources of the world of cultivators and improve his strength. But Siddha Haotian had set up many obstacles and obstructions, and his strength was far greater than Gong Sun Yan's. He had no other choice but to hide his strength and bide his time. He planned to sneak into the world of cultivators when the time was right. As for the Hong and Song families, Gong Sun Yen pondered for a while and continued, "Both of them are relatively secretive clans. They don't have much contact with the outside world. Ordinary people in the martial arts world may not know of the existence of these two clans." Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. No wonder not only Tang Qianling didn't know anything, but even the cultivators on the Venerable Realms Pier didn't know of the existence of the Hong and Song families. However, although their clans are relatively small, and are far inferior to the three great clans and Awakening Heaven sect, they have an extremely mysterious cultivation method. Moreover, the venerable experts that they cultivate are several times stronger than other venerable experts of the same level. Gong Sun Yen sighed and said helplessly. Even he himself couldn't understand why the Hong and Song families were so powerful. They were all venerable experts, so why were the people of the Hong and Song families so powerful? If it weren't for another group of people restraining the Hong and Song families, as well as the development of the small clans that had submitted to them, and if it weren't for the fact that these people were so low-key, the people who ruled the martial arts world might have already changed hands. Oh, it's just a little stronger. It's no big deal. Xiao Chen shrugged, skipped this topic, and asked, "You'd better talk about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. You should know about it, right? Do you know what they used as sacrifices?" Since the members of the Hong and Song families were cultivators, it was normal for them to be stronger than ordinary cultivators. Xiao Chen himself was originally like this, so he didn't take it to heart. What he was most concerned about now was the issue of the sacrifice. After all, the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect are very mysterious. Most of the knowledge about them in the martial arts world is limited to rumors. No sect or family dares to provoke them. Of course, they are usually more restrained and won't meddle in the affairs of other sections. Gongsun Yen shook his head. Obviously, he knew very little about the two sections. What immortal cultivation sect? Ghost cultivation sect? They were just talking about the Hong family and the Song family. Why did they suddenly bring up two random sects? Are you trying to fool me, or have you become stupid after being beaten by me just now? Do you want me to help you straighten it out again? Suddenly hearing these two unfamiliar terms, Xiao Chen immediately frowned. He clenched his fist and waved it in front of Gongsun Yen, asking unhappily. So you don't know? Gongsun Yen was stunned and asked subconsciously. What? If I don't know, are you going to make up a story? Xiao Chen stared at Gongsun Yan's expression and asked coldly. No. Let me first describe the situation of these two sects to you. Gongsun Yen hurriedly waved his hand, stopping Xiao Chen's further action, and then explained, in the martial arts world, most of the sects belong to the martial cultivation sect and the devil cultivation sect. There are sects and families, but the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect are exceptions. They are neither martial cultivation sect nor devil cultivation sect, but they have other cultivation methods. You mean, the Hong family and the Song family belong to the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect respectively? Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed. It shouldn't be. The names of these two sects sounded a little confrontational, but the last time he saw in the Venerable Secret Realm, the relationship between these two families seemed to be quite good. No, the Hong family and the Song family belong to the immortal cultivation sect. This sect is formed by some unknown small families in the martial arts world, and these two families are the leaders of this sect. Gongsun Yen paused for a moment, and then continued, as for the ghost cultivation sect, it is formed by some evil cultivators. Their leader is called Shishan Giant Bull, and he is an extremely powerful expert. Shishan Giant Bull? Xiao Chen was shocked. His first guild mission in Songning City was to kill an evil cultivator, and his master who came to seek revenge was a guy called Shishan Old Devil. Later, Xiao Chen encountered evil cultivators with names starting with Shishan one after another. At that time, he speculated that these people might belong to the same sect. He didn't expect to hear this name again today. It seemed that this ghost cultivation sect was their base camp. Yes, Shishan Giant Bull is the most powerful existence in the ghost cultivation sect. Gongsun Yen naturally didn't know what Xiao Chen was thinking in his heart. He nodded and said, both the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect have their own unique cultivation methods, so their strength is much higher than that of ordinary martial cultivators and evil cultivators. However, these two sects have different ideologies, so they often fight with each other, which consumes a lot of energy. What the hell, I didn't expect the martial arts world to be so deep. Xiao Chen murmured. However, it's also fortunate that this is the case. If it weren't for the fact that they were fighting each other so fiercely, the inner martial world would have fallen into their hands long ago with their profound strength. Gongsun Yen sighed and lamented. Since they are so powerful, haven't you sects ever considered forming a group to destroy them? I remember that you martial cultivators and evil cultivators have always been very disgusted with evil cultivators, right? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked lightly. However, Xiao Chen immediately figured it out. Based on the temperament of these people, they must have tried something similar. However, from the looks of it now, the result was bound to end in failure. After all, ordinary cultivators and cultivators were not on the same level. There was no comparison at all. Even if a group of ordinary cultivators went there, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat to cultivators. Sure enough, Gongsun Yen smiled helplessly and said, why not? Back then, Master. Situ Haokong gathered all the sects of the devil cultivation sect in the martial arts world and wanted to wipe out the ghost cultivation sect in one fell swoop. In the end, when they just arrived at the enemy's territory, before they had time to set up camp, they killed most of their people. Even he himself was seriously injured. Chapter 1264. Is that true? Then what happened to him? As Xiao Chen asked, he was secretly shocked. Could it be that there were cultivators among those evil cultivators? If Gong Sun Yen wasn't lying, then there would be big trouble. It should be known that ordinary cultivators were no match for evil cultivators of the same level. After all, evil cultivators' cultivation methods were cruel and tyrannical. The evil techniques they used were also strange and unpredictable. Their explosive strength was much higher than that of ordinary cultivators. If there were cultivators among them, then it meant that there was basically no one who could resist them. If this continued, the consequences would be unimaginable. Later on, Situ Haotian recovered from his injuries with great difficulty. He felt that this battle was an unforgettable shame, so he decided to take a risk and go to the world of cultivators. He wanted to see if he could obtain more strength. Gong Sun Yan's voice was somewhat low. It was obvious that he didn't want to recall this part of the past. Oh. I heard that he came back later, right? Then did he have another showdown with the ghost cultivation sect? Xiao Chen asked as he rubbed his chin. Gong Sun Yen curled his lips and answered reluctantly, about 20 years ago, Situ Haotian came back once. He thought that he had obtained strength in the world of cultivators and could easily defeat Shishan Giant Ox. However, after he came to challenge them, apart from killing a few low-level evil cultivators, he could only fight to a draw with Shishan Giant Ox. He was helpless and could only return empty-handed. So he was ashamed and couldn't face the people of your sect, so he chose to leave? Xiao Chen asked with great interest. Who knows what he was thinking? Gong Sun Yen suddenly flew into a rage. He gritted his teeth and said, he didn't tell us the reason and just ran away. I don't know if he died of guilt or if he took his concubine to live in seclusion in the world of cultivators and live happily ever after. At the mention of Situ Haotian's name, Gong Sun Yen had a belly full of anger. This guy had obtained strength, but he didn't allow others to enter the world of cultivators to advance. He even set those strange rules. Gong Sun Yen didn't know if he was crazy, but it made Gong Sun Yen very unhappy. Hearing Gong Sun Yan's words, Xiao Chen's face became a bit gloomy. He didn't care whether Situ Haotian could defeat the giant ox or not, but Gong Sun Yen actually insulted his mother, saying that she was Situ Haotian's concubine. Xiao Chen hated people who talked about his parents the most in his life. Fortunately, elder son, who was standing to the side, had sharp eyes. He noticed that Xiao Chen's expression had become very unsightly. After pondering for a moment, he understood the reason. He hurriedly whispered a few words into Gong Sun Yan's ear. Master. That hero Xiao Chen is Xiao Feng's biological son. He is also the son of the woman that Situ Haotian has a crush on. This. Gong Sun Yen was stunned for a moment. He felt a gust of cold wind blowing over, and his whole body shivered. His back suddenly became cold. He touched it with his hand and found that his back was completely soaked with sweat. Gong Sun Yen felt a strong sense of danger when he saw Xiao Chen staring at him coldly. He hurriedly said apologetically, little friend Xiao, about that, we're all working hard to enter the cultivation world. I'm very sorry about what happened to your parents, but this was all Situ Haotian's despicable actions. I'm only his subordinate. You can't blame it all on me, right? Oh, according to what you said, this matter should be blamed on me and my parents being unlucky? Xiao Chen laughed coldly and said, you can only blame my mother for being too careless, catching the eye of that foolish old sect master of yours. You can only blame my father for being too careless, getting captured by the current sect master for no reason. You can only blame me for being too careless, getting targeted by you. You have no choice but to chase me down and kill me, right? No. I didn't. Gong Sun Yen was dumbfounded. He just wanted to shirk his responsibility. Why did he feel that something was wrong when he listened to Xiao Chen's words? I think you are itching for a beating. You want me to beat you up to loosen your muscles and bones. Only then will you come to your senses. Xiao Chen thought that his parents might all be suffering, and his heart became more and more upset. He looked at Gong Sun Yen in front of him and felt even more disgusted. He could not help but clench his fists and take 2 steps forward. He knocked Gongsun Yen down with one punch and then pounced on him. Ouch, it hurts. Master Xiao, please don't hit me. I don't mean to blame your parents. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. Gongsun Yen had no time to dodge. He could only passively defend against the punches and kicks that fell on him like raindrops. He secretly cursed his bad luck. Although Xiao Chen only used ordinary punches and kicks, when they hit Gongsun Yan's body, Gongsun Yan felt unbearable pain. No matter how hard he tried to defend, it was useless. If he had not tried his best to protect a few vital parts of his body, he might have been beaten into a cripple. Naturally, Xiao Chen did not care about Gongsun Yan's screams. He continued to beat Gongsun Yan to vent the long-suppressed resentment and anger in his heart. After beating Gongsun Yan for half an hour, Xiao Chen's anger finally dissipated. He stopped and looked at Gongsun Yan condescendingly. He said coldly, "In order to enter the world of cultivators, you tried everything you could. This is not a big deal. But you actually took my father away and sent people to deal with me. This is your fault." Hee, great hero Xiao, you can't say that. I didn't actually want to harm you after that. I just ordered people to protect you. Gongsun Yan struggled to get up and said with a smile, his face bruised and swollen. Old fart, you still have the nerve to say that? If it weren't for this young hero's intelligence and strength, I would have been killed by you a long time ago. Even the grass on my grave is taller than me now. Xiao Chen glared at him fiercely and said angrily. Yes, yes, yes. Master Xiao is very lucky. How could you die so easily? Gongsun Yan did not dare to refute. He could only put on a bitter face and smile apologetically. He also secretly glared at Elder Sunday. The meaning of this glare was obvious. Gongsun Yan was reprimanding Elder Sunday. Why didn't you explain the situation earlier? You made me get beaten up again for nothing. And I don't even have a place to reason with. You are really too blind. Feeling the anger and resentment in Gongsun Yan's eyes, Elder Sun felt a little helpless. Master, who told you to speak nonsense? You should at least wait for me to finish introducing Xiao Chen's identity. Once you know the ins and outs of the situation, it won't be too late for you to explain yourself. Alright, don't talk about these useless things. Xiao Chen waved his hand impatiently and said, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you now. Immediately go and arrange for the person in charge of the Immortal Cultivator sect and the Ghost Cultivator sect to come here. I want to ask them personally what method is needed to allow people to enter the world of cultivators safely. Chapter 1265. Xiao Chen had already thought it through. Since Gongsun Yan had some understanding of these two sects, he might as well let him run errands for them. There was no need for Xiao Chen to ask around and save a lot of time. This. Hero Xiao, you may not know much about the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects. When Gongsun Yan heard this order, he immediately revealed a difficult expression. He hesitantly said, they've always been arrogant and looked down on the other martial arts and demonic cultivators in the martial arts world. Even if I invite them, I'm afraid they won't listen to me. This request was really difficult for Gongsun Yan. After all, the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects were very arrogant. Even if Situ Haotian personally invited them, they might not be willing to come. I don't care about this, you think of a way yourself. Xiao Chen casually waved his hand and glanced at Gongsun Yan, I'll give you 1 day. If you can't find them in 1 day, then I'll take your dog life. There's no point in keeping you alive anyway, what do you think? After saying that, Xiao Chen shook his fist in front of Gongsun Yan. Then, he turned around and whispered a few words to Miss Xing afterward. He mounted the Bay's spirit beast and sped towards the teleportation formation. Since there was nothing else for him to do here, and Xing Menjing and the others were still guarding the array, Xiao Chen planned to bring the girls into Awakening Heaven Gate and settle them down. Jia Muzin had also been out for a long time, so he should go back to take care of his family's affairs. He couldn't stay outside for a long time with Xiao Chen. Seeing Xiao Chen disappear into the horizon, Gongsun Yan and elder son looked at each other in dismay. They were very depressed. Xiao Chen had given them a difficult problem. How could he invite those two secluded sects to come out in such a short time? Gongsun Yan and elder son did not dare to escape. Firstly, they had nowhere to go. Secondly, there were too many people in the martial arts world who hated Awakening Heaven Gate. Once they left, they would probably be chased by their enemies endlessly. The two of them first asked little Miss Xing to disperse the crowd of disciples standing foolishly in the plaza. Then, after a careful discussion, they finally managed to come up with a plan. Gongsun Yan first sent someone to pass a message to the Immortal Cultivation Sect and the Ghost Cultivation Sect. He lied that he had found the perfect way to enter the Immortal Cultivation world and that the test was successful. He had already sent his subordinates over. Then, he claimed that he was willing to share the results with the two sections. However, he needed each of them to send someone to Awakening Heaven's sect to discuss the follow-up matters. Although this statement was a little unrealistic and Gongsun Yan also felt that it was slightly inappropriate, there was no other way. At least, he did not think that he was lying. After all, they had indeed sent the cyborgs into the Immortal Cultivation world. Even the current, former sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, Situ Chitian, had followed them in. It was just that they did not know the results for the time being. After receiving the news, the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect attached great importance to it. After all, this time, they were personally invited by the Supreme Elder of Awakening Heaven sect. Moreover, they were indeed studying whether there was any other way to successfully enter the Immortal Cultivation world other than offering human sacrifices. They were in a state of panic. They did not expect the opportunity to take the initiative to send itself to their door. On the other hand, the Immortal Cultivation sects and the Ghost Cultivation sects were also quite vigilant. After they received the news, they held a meeting in their sections. They wanted to determine what was going on and what Gongsun Yan's purpose was. However, after discussing for a long time, the two sects could not figure out why Gongsun Yan wanted to do this. Although the news seemed to be very suspicious, they were not willing to miss this opportunity. In the end, after thinking about it, they decided to send people to Awakening Heaven's sect to see the specific situation before making a decision. Early the next morning, the two people in charge of the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect rushed to Awakening Heaven's sect with their subordinates. The person sent by the former was the old master of the Song family, Song Weizong, while the person sent by the latter was the great elder of the Ghost Cultivation sect, West Mountain Mad Demon. Both of them were influential figures in their respective sections. West Mountain Mad Demon of the Ghost Cultivation sect arrived at Awakening Heaven sect first. As soon as he was led into the living room, he heard a series of footsteps behind him. He turned his head slightly and glanced with the corner of his eye. He found that Song Weizong of the Immortal Cultivation sect had also arrived. "Hey, old ghost Song, I didn't expect it to be you. A few years ago, you were hit by Junyo's sect leader. I thought you were already dead. I didn't expect your old bones to be so tough. You're still struggling at death's door." West Mountain Mad Demon sneered. He didn't even bother to turn his face back as he sneered. In West Mountain Mad Demon's memory, Song Weizong had once led a group of disciples of the Immortal Cultivation sect to encircle and annihilate the Ghost Cultivation sect. In the end, he was suddenly attacked by his sect leader, Junyo, and was hit right in the heart. He almost died on the spot. That encirclement and annihilation failed miserably. West Mountain Mad Demon still remembered the panicked scene of the group of little ghosts of the Immortal Cultivation sect carrying Song Weizong back in a panic. It seemed that Song Weizong had been rescued. Finally, this Immortal Cultivation sect still had some ability. Humph. Before your Ghost Cultivation sect is completely eradicated, Song Weizong will certainly not die easily. Song Weizong snorted coldly. Then you have to be careful. If one day, lightning falls from the sky and strikes you to death, don't blame me for warning you. West Mountain Mad Demon sneered with a faint smile. I'm too lazy to talk to you about this kind of glib talk. Song Weizong glared at him and warned him with a murderous look. After you go back, tell that Junyo to be careful. Don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll definitely make him die without a burial place. Song Weizong was obviously unwilling to talk to West Mountain Mad Demon. After saying this, he turned around and ordered the disciples of Awakening sect to pass the message. Hee, I think you can't wait for this day. West Mountain Mad Demon retorted, unwilling to be outdone. Seeing that Song Weizong ignored him, he curled his lips and strolled around the living room. After Song Weizong sent the disciples of Awakening sect away, West Mountain Mad Demon rolled his eyes and pretended to be careless. I heard that in order to prepare for the opening of the Immortal Cultivation World, your Immortal Cultivation sect specially found a lot of women with spiritual chi from the secular world. Among them, there was a top-grade girl with a mysterious Yin constitution. It seems that she was snatched from our Ghost Cultivation sect. Do you know about this? West Mountain Mad Demon had only received the news a few days ago. He heard that in order to capture a certain woman with spiritual chi in Songming City, the West Mountain Old Man had specially brought his disciples from the secular world to capture her. Chapter 1266. In the end, the Ghost Cultivation sect did not expect that the two of them would have a bad start. Not only did West Mountain Elder lose his life, but even the little girl who was supposed to be in his hands was also snatched away. Only Sun Abayo managed to escape with great difficulty to report the news. What a bunch of trash. Are you talking like a human? What do you mean by snatching it away? Song Weizong frowned and said disapprovingly, even if we want to let people participate in the sacrifice, we have to ask for the consent of the person involved in advance. Unlike you Ghost Cultivation sect, who are worse than animals, you run into the secular world and casually capture those defenseless people. Song Weizong's tone was filled with deep disgust. Obviously, he was extremely dissatisfied with the Ghost Cultivation sect's approach. Ha ha ha. You're just using some sanctimonious words to gain the sympathy of those inexperienced little girls, and then promising them some money or cultivation as a lure? West Mountain Mad Demon laughed loudly, his voice full of contempt. Do you really think I don't know? What do you know? Song Weizong immediately retorted, we let them choose voluntarily. If they are unwilling, we will naturally not force them. West Mountain Mad Demon snorted from his nostrils and sneered unscrupulously, forget it. Coercion and temptation are two means to achieve the same goal. In essence, what is the difference between you and the Ghost Cultivation sect? You actually have the nerve to laugh at us. Your Immortal Cultivation sect is simply too hypocritical. You. Song Weizong was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to rush over and teach West Mountain Mad Demon a lesson. However, he was stopped by a disciple of the Awakening Heaven sect who rushed over. The disciple felt the waves of killing intent echoing in the reception hall. He first panted a few times, then swallowed his saliva, braced himself, and stood between the two of them. He carefully reported, two distinguished guests, the Supreme Elder has been waiting in the conference room for a long time. I hope that the two of you can temporarily move to the conference room for a discussion. If there is anything else, we can talk about it later. Since the disciple of the host who invited them had said so, Song Weizong naturally could not continue to argue with Shishan Mad Demon. He could only glare at him angrily, then under the guidance of the disciple, he turned around and walked toward the conference room. Mad Demon Shishan snorted disdainfully and looked at Song Weizong's back with a gloomy smile. Then, he put away the evil aura on his body and followed the two of them to the conference room unhurriedly. Pushing open the door of the conference room, the two of them walked in one after another. They originally thought that they would see Grand Elder Gong Sun Yen of Awakening Heaven sect on the main seat, but when they raised their heads, they were stunned to see Gong Sun Yen standing obediently to the side, and a handsome young man sitting on the main seat. At this moment, the young man was sitting with his legs crossed, holding a cup of tea with a leisurely look on his face. He had no intention of standing up to greet them. It seemed that he didn't care about the two of them at all. Beside the young man, there was another fair-skinned man sitting there silently. However, Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were both experienced cultivators, so they could tell that there was something wrong with this man. It was obvious that he was a woman dressed as a man. Please take a seat, the two of you. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come. Awakening Heaven Sect is deeply honored. I represent the sect master to express my gratitude to the two of you. Gongsun Yen bowed slightly as thanks. There's no need for formalities. Elder Gongsun must know why we are here, right? Song Weizong waved his hand and looked around the conference room. Other than the two sitting young men and Gongsun Yen, there was no one else. He couldn't help but ask in surprise, I wonder why the Awakening Heaven Sect Master isn't here? Is he preparing materials to enter the immortal cultivation world? Hee, Song Family Master doesn't need to be anxious. Let me first introduce you. Gongsun Yen made an inviting gesture and let Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan take their seats. Then, he respectfully pointed at Xing Gongzi and said, This is the new sect master of our Awakening Heaven Sect, Xing Gongzi. Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were stunned when they heard this. They didn't bother to move their feet and looked at the fair-skinned little brother in confusion. Their faces were filled with disbelief. Gongsun Yen felt that their surprised reactions were quite normal. Without waiting for them to ask, he immediately answered, because our former sect master, Situ Chitian, had important matters to attend to, he could no longer continue to manage the affairs of Awakening Heaven Sect. Therefore, a few days ago, he specially passed the position of sect master to Xing Gongzi. Now, Xing Gongzi is in charge of Awakening Heaven Sect. Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were still very surprised. Awakening Heaven Sect was an outstanding demonic sect in the inner martial arts world. How could the sect master be changed just like that? Moreover, they didn't inform the other sects of this news in advance. Could it be that there was some unknown inside story? Besides, since Xing Gongzi, who was disguised as a man, was the sect master of Awakening Heaven Sect, why wasn't she sitting in the main seat, but another kid that they had never seen before? What was that guy doing here? The other one is. Gongsun Yen saw the puzzled eyes of the two people. When he was about to introduce Xiao Chen to them, he hesitated a little. Xiao Chen suddenly took the initiative to introduce himself. Oh, I'm the personal bodyguard of Xing Gongsun. I'm also an assistant, driver, accountant, administrative, and so on. My nickname is Jian. Gongsun Yen suddenly had a few black lines on his forehead. He didn't understand what Xiao Chen was up to, but since he had said so, he couldn't directly refute it. He could only nod silently with a strange expression on his face. The two people on the opposite side looked at each other and were even more puzzled. How could a small bodyguard and assistant sit in the main seat so openly? What was the background of this guy called Jian? Didn't they agree to discuss a way to enter the immortal cultivation world? Why did such a person suddenly appear out of nowhere? Turning around, the two saw that Xing Gongsun didn't raise any objections, and Gongsun Yen, the supreme elder, also tacitly agreed with the statement of Jian, as if what he said was reasonable. Although Song Weizong and Mad Demon Shishan were a little puzzled, after all, they were now in someone else's territory, so it wasn't good for them to express any opinions. They could only silently find a seat and sit down. Naturally, Xiao Chen could see the doubts in the hearts of the two, but he didn't intend to explain. He just put down the cup in his hand, glanced at the two lightly, and then said, Well, since everyone is here, let's not waste everyone's time. Who wants to talk about the plan to enter the immortal cultivation world first? Chapter 1267. Boy, everyone here is a reputable figure in the martial arts world. You are just a little assistant who runs errands. What qualifications do you have to discuss the plan of the world of cultivation with us? Mad Demon of West Mountain knocked on the table slowly and asked in a neutral tone. Of course, West Mountain Mad Devil did not really think that Xiao Chen was just a handyman. However, since this guy was pretending to be stupid and refused to tell the truth, he did not intend to let him have his way. He simply played along and taunted him first. Anyway, there was no loss in taking advantage of him verbally. Song Weizong was relatively calm. Although he also had doubts about Xiao Chen's identity, he would not choose to act rashly before he figured out the situation. What's wrong with you? Have you become stupid after practicing evil arts? Didn't I just say that I can manage everything? Going to the world of immortal cultivation is a big thing, and I have to supervise it carefully. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes at West Mountain Mad Devil and shouted impatiently. You are just a little assistant. What the hell is there to supervise? Don't talk nonsense over there. I don't believe you. West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly became furious and shouted, slamming the table. Don't talk nonsense. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Hurry up and tell me everything you know, then get out. Xiao Chen waved his hand decisively and did not even bother to look at him. Xiao Chen had never liked evil cultivators. If it were not for the fact that he wanted to inquire about the situation of the world of immortal cultivation, he would have killed West Mountain Mad Devil long ago. West Mountain Mad Devil was furious at Xiao Chen's arrogance. He jumped up and pointed at Xiao Chen fiercely, gritting his teeth and saying, Say your grandmother's leg. I think you are looking for death. Before his voice died away, West Mountain Mad Devil had already activated his mental cultivation method. A black mist condensed on his body and tightly wrapped his arms. Then, he quickly rushed in front of Xiao Chen, waving his fists and smashing them fiercely. Bang! A loud bang was accompanied by a cry of pain. A figure suddenly flew backward and hit the wall of the conference room before falling to the ground. It was the West Mountain Mad Demon who had just punched. Just now, at the moment when West Mountain Mad Devil punched out, he thought that Xiao Chen would definitely die. However, he suddenly felt his vision blur, and he instantly lost track of Xiao Chen. Then, there was a sound of something tearing through the air behind him. Mad Demon Shishan cursed in his heart, but it was too late for him to react. He could only grit his teeth and take the hit. Although he was prepared to defend himself, he was still sent flying. Everyone in the conference room was dumbfounded, especially Gong Sun Yen and Song Weizong. They were extremely shocked and couldn't believe the scene in front of them. Just now, West Mountain Mad Devil's punch was extremely domineering. The two of them speculated that even they might not be able to escape unscathed. They did not expect that not only was Xiao Chen unscathed, but he had also circled behind West Mountain Mad Devil at a speed that ordinary people could not see with the naked eye and kicked him hard. Song Weizong, who was originally rather indifferent, now had a somewhat grave expression on his face. He could not help but reevaluate Xiao Chen, secretly estimating this fellow's strength. In all fairness, this guy was definitely not as simple and naive as he looked. This was because when he dodged West Mountain Mad Devil's attack and took the initiative to attack, he did not show his cultivation at all. In other words, Song Weizong couldn't even see Xiao Chen's dodging movements clearly. He could only feel that Xiao Chen was using extremely ordinary punches and kicks. However, just a few ordinary punches and kicks were enough to send Shishan Mad Demon flying into the wall. What exactly was this guy's strength? In the martial arts world, besides the giant bull of Shishan and the old man of the Hong family, there was no one who could make Song Weizong feel fear. Who would have thought that such a young junior would appear out of nowhere today? Which sect was he from? Xiao Chen watched West Mountain Mad Devil fall heavily to the ground, wiped his hands casually, stared at him and scolded, "Damn it, you're just an elder of a sect. Do you really think you're someone important? You really shine with a little sunlight and lay eggs with a chicken coop. If it weren't for the fact that you're still useful, I would have killed you long ago." After scolding him for a while, Xiao Chen did not seem to be satisfied. He rolled up his sleeves and walked over. He aimed at his stomach and kicked him hard, sending him flying into the air. Then, he punched him hard in the face. Even the bystanders could feel the pain. Ah! West Mountain Mad Devil could not resist at all. He only had time to scream. He felt that his entire face was about to be deformed by Xiao Chen's fist. However, this was not the end. Next, Xiao Chen's fists came surging like a storm. West Mountain Mad Devil did not even have the chance to beg for mercy. He could only use his hands to protect the vital parts of his body, struggling to support himself. Elder Gongsun, you deliberately invited us here. You didn't invite us here just to beat West Mountain Mad Devil up, did you? Song Weizong could not stand it anymore. He turned his head and said to Gongsun Yen, although this guy really deserves a beating, I'm not interested in watching him get beaten up. If there's nothing else, I want to leave first. The entire conference room was filled with the sound of Xiao Chen's punches and kicks. Occasionally, West Mountain Mad Devil's screams could be heard. It was painful to listen to. Not to mention Song Weizong, anyone else would not be able to bear it. In fact, Song Weizong felt quite happy watching West Mountain Mad Devil being beaten up by Xiao Chen. It felt like he had vented his anger. However, his main purpose of coming here today was not to see West Mountain Mad Devil make a fool of himself. He wanted to understand the opening of the world of cultivation. Therefore, he did not want to waste any more time. Master Song, please wait a moment. Gongsun Yen quickly comforted Song Weizong. He then turned to Miss Xing with a bitter face and said, that. Sect leader Xing, do you think you can ask Xiao Jian to stop for a while? After all, we still have other things to discuss. It's not a good idea to keep him waiting. What do you think? Gongsun Yen naturally did not dare to provoke Xiao Chen directly. Wouldn't it be over if he got involved? Helplessly, he could only look for Miss Xing to help persuade him. From Gongsun Yan's point of view, Xiao Chen seemed to be interested in Miss Xing, otherwise, he would not have helped her seize the position of sect leader. Therefore, Miss Xing should be able to persuade him. Miss Xing also understood what Gongsun Yan meant. She nodded, stood up and walked over. She gently pulled on the corner of Xiao Chen's clothes and said in a low voice, "Hey, that's enough. Don't you want to ask about the world of cultivation? Don't accidentally kill him. Otherwise, you won't be able to get anything out of him." Chapter 1268. Oh, since Sect Master Xing is pleading on your behalf, I'll give her face and spare your life. Xiao Chen didn't object. He snorted and stopped what he was doing. He turned around and walked towards the main seat. Xiao Chen knew that West Mountain Mad Devil still had some value, so he did not go too hard on him. At most, he would make the old man feel pain for a while, but it would definitely not be fatal. However, although Xiao Chen stopped hitting, West Mountain Mad Devil did not have any intention of standing up. He was still curled up on the ground with his eyes closed. From time to time, he would let out a low moan. It seemed that he was going to continue playing dead and did not intend to cooperate with Xiao Chen and the others. Slowly returning to his seat, Xiao Chen found that West Mountain Mad Devil was still lying on the ground and wailing. He was not angry, but said slowly, "Trash from West Mountain, what's wrong? Are you trying to blackmail me? If you think that lying on the ground is more comfortable than sitting in your seat, then I will suffer today and directly cripple your limbs. This way, you can lie on the ground for the rest of your life. What do you think?" "Humph. You win." Xiao Chen's threat fell into West Mountain Mad Devil's ears. He knew that Xiao Chen would do what he said, so he could only endure the pain on his body and stand up, grimacing in pain. He glared at Xiao Chen fiercely, but his face was already swollen, so the angry glare did not seem to have any deterrence at all. As West Mountain Mad Devil and Song Weizong's subordinates were blocked outside the gate of Qitian Gate, he had to rely on himself and limped back to his seat. Xiao Chen ignored West Mountain Mad Devil's muttering. After he sat down, he said lightly, "Okay, I don't want to talk nonsense. This time, I invited the two of you here to ask how your preparations are going." Mad Demon of Shishan was still gasping for air due to the pain from the beating. Song Weizong was already surprised. Why couldn't he understand what Jian was saying? Since we're all going to enter the world of cultivation, then we should all work together. Don't split into 3 groups. You go in your group and I go in mine. That's a waste of time and energy. Moreover, if there's a problem, there's no way to solve it in time. Xiao Chen waited for a while, and seeing that no one spoke, he added another sentence. Song Weizong couldn't help but say, "Ah. Friend Jian, I've come to the Awakening Heavens sect to participate in this meeting because Elder Gongsun sent us a message saying that the Awakening Heavens sect has already discovered a way to enter the cultivation world. That's why we've come to discuss it with him." Xiao Chen glanced at Gongsun Yen. Gongsun Yen was sweating profusely, but he didn't know how to explain. He could only nod with difficulty. Song Weizong looked at the two of them strangely and continued, "So why don't you talk about how to enter the world of cultivation first, and then everyone can analyze it in detail? What do you think?" Song Weizong was a little puzzled. It was clearly the Awakening Heavens sect who called him here, and from the looks of it, it seemed that the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect were going to cooperate with them. But now, they didn't mention a word about the way to enter the world of cultivation. What was the point of cooperating? Oh, that method won't work now because the only transmission array has been destroyed by that idiot Situ Qitian. It can't send anyone else to the world of cultivation. Xiao Chen spread his hands and said unhurriedly. What? That Awakening Heaven palm. Did the former sect leader go to the world of cultivation? Song Weizong was shocked and immediately asked. He went in, but whether he's dead or alive is still unknown. Xiao Chen knocked on the table and said his final purpose, "Because of this, I've specially asked the two of you to come here today. I want to ask you, is there any other way to enter the world of cultivation? If there is, you might as well share it with everyone." Song Weizong and West Mountain Mad Devil finally understood the ins and outs of the whole matter. Although Song Weizong was stunned when he learned that Situ Qitian had entered the world of cultivation in advance, he quickly calmed down and was not too surprised. He lowered his head to think about something and did not immediately choose to agree or refuse. West Mountain Mad Devil was silent. He was very dissatisfied with Xiao Chen's attitude. It was obvious that the Awakening Heavens sect could not get any benefits themselves, so they took the initiative to cooperate with the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect, wanting to get a share of their plan. In the end, he even put on the posture of a master. This was simply treating others as fools. However, due to Xiao Chen's high strength, West Mountain Mad Devil did not dare to complain. He could only choose to remain silent. He planned to see how Song Weizong would deal with it before making a decision. As for Gongsun Yen, who was standing on the side with his head down, he had long been defeated by Xiao Chen. Naturally, he had no opinion at all. Moreover, the Awakening Heaven sect's plan had completely failed. Of course, he was anxious to use other ways to enter the world of cultivation, so he could only listen to Xiao Chen's instructions at the moment. Seeing that both of them were in deep thought, Xiao Chen was not in a hurry to urge them. Instead, he said lightly, "You don't have to rush to give me an answer for the time being. You can think about it for a while. Anyway, in addition to you, the people of the Awakening Heavens sect are also looking for other ways to enter the world of cultivation. When the time comes, they may enter before you." Song Weizong's expression changed for a while, as if he had suddenly made up his mind. He said, Jian, my little friend, please allow me to go out for a while and report to the sect first. After all, this matter is of great importance. I must discuss it with the people in charge of the other sects before I can give you a confirmation." After that, Song Weizong took out his mobile phone and apologized to Xiao Chen. Then, he walked out of the door. It seemed that he was going to make a phone call. Xiao Chen waved his hand, leaned on the chair, and put himself in a comfortable position. Then, he closed his eyes and rested, waiting for Song Weizong's return. When West Mountain Mad Devil saw this scene, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, Song Weizong, this fool, won't be swayed by this, will he? In fact, as long as both the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect keep their mouths shut, that kid won't be able to get anything out of them. Since this guy named Jian claimed that they were confident of finding a way to enter the world of cultivation, then let him go and find it. Who knew when he would find it? Why should he share his own achievements with him? After waiting for a while, Song Weizong finished the phone call and returned to the conference room. As soon as he entered the door, he nodded slightly to Xiao Chen and said, Jian, my little friend, our immortal cultivation sect has discussed it internally. We are willing to cooperate with the Awakening Heaven sect. Since everyone's purpose is the same, if we can enter the world of cultivation together, we can take care of each other. Chapter 1269. What? Hearing this, Mad Devil of Shishan was really shocked. He never thought that the people of the Immortal Cultivation sect, who had always thought highly of themselves and acted alone, would actually be willing to cooperate with a young boy. What was going on? In fact, the Immortal Cultivation sect also had their own ideas. This time, they had recruited relatively few women with spiritual energy. If they forcefully opened the sacrifice, it was very likely that they would not be able to open the passage. Instead, these women would be lost, and in the end, they would suffer a double loss. The Ghost Cultivation sect seemed to have only captured a portion of people, and it was probably not enough. Since everyone was short of manpower, it was better to gather together. In this way, wouldn't they be able to enter the world of immortal cultivation? The most important thing was that if everyone went in together, they would be able to see how many people from the Ghost Cultivation sect had entered. This way, they would not have to worry all day about how many people from the Ghost Cultivation sect had secretly entered and would be caught off guard. If everyone gathered together to open the passage to the world of immortal cultivation, it meant that the number of people from both sides would basically be equal. In this way, they would also be able to deal with the situation appropriately. After all, whether it was letting the people from the Ghost Cultivation sect enter the world of immortal cultivation alone or letting them learn something and return with glory, it was not a good thing. It was best to let them be under his watch. Sure enough. Shao Chen nodded with satisfaction. Then, he turned to look at West Mountain Mad Devil and said, "What about the Ghost Cultivation sect?" "The Immortal Cultivation sect has already agreed." "What do you say?" West Mountain Mad Devil did not speak for a long time. Song Weizong's attitude was unexpected. Originally, he thought that even if this guy did not refuse immediately, he would at least delay it for a while and test the other party's attitude. He did not expect that Song Weizong would agree so directly after going out to make a phone call. This made West Mountain Mad Devil suddenly panic, and for a moment, he did not know how to deal with it. Seeing that West Mountain Mad Devil had been hesitating for a long time and did not give an answer, Shao Chen could not help but sneer and mercilessly ridicule. "It seems that the Immortal Cultivation sect is more reliable. They know when to advance and when to retreat, unlike those idiots from the Ghost Cultivation sect. They have to think back and forth for such a simple problem for a long time. I think we should not call them the Ghost Cultivation sect. Since there is something wrong with their brains, we should just call them the Brain Cultivation sect." "You!" Shishan Mad Devil was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He was an elder in the Ghost Cultivation sect, and his status had always been high and mighty. Other than the sect leader, Shishan Junyo, who could give him orders, everyone else was very respectful and fearful of him. When had he ever suffered such vexation? What, you and me? Should he cooperate or not? Good or bad? It was a simple decision. Hurry up and say it. This young master has no time to waste with you. Shao Chen looked at West Mountain Mad Devil, who was angry but did not dare to speak. He could not help but slap the table heavily. His sharp eyes looked straight at West Mountain Mad Devil. Obviously, he had lost his patience. West Mountain Mad Devil was startled by Shao Chen's heavy slap on the table. He felt a cold killing intent coming straight at him. He was afraid that Song Weizong would kill him in anger, so he quickly waved his hand. His eyes wandered back and forth between Song Weizong, Xing Gongzi, and Gong Sun Yen. After pondering for a while, a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes, and he finally spoke. "I can't give you an answer right now, because I have to ask our sect leader, Shishan Junyo. If he agrees to participate in your operation, I naturally won't have any objections," West Mountain Mad Devil said in a hoarse voice. "What the F***CK, is there something wrong with your Ghost Cultivation sect? You said you wanted to come over to discuss something, but you sent a guy who can't make a decision. Are you deliberately looking for trouble?" Xiao Chen suddenly rolled his eyes and said impatiently, "Then why are you still sitting here? Hurry up and call him to ask. Don't tell me you want me to invite you." That's not necessary. But before I ask, I have another request. Even if our ghost cultivation sect agrees to cooperate with you, it's only a one-sided alliance." West Mountain Mad Devil glanced at Gong Sun Yen and added, "As for Awakened Sect, because they didn't inform us before and chose to act on their own, and the plan to send people to the immortal cultivation world also failed, we naturally can't let them join us this time as punishment." When Song Weizong heard West Mountain Mad Devil's opinion, he also nodded slightly. Although the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect were not on good terms, they had a consensus on this point. With the help of an expert like Xiao Qin, the immortal cultivation sect was certainly happy to see it happen. However, Awakened Sect was not very useful now. At best, it was of little value, so there was no need to take them to the immortal cultivation world and waste the existing resources. Oh. Xiao Qin yawned as if he suddenly thought of something. He said casually, "I forgot to tell you just now. In addition to my part-time job in Awakened Sect, the current sect leader of Awakened Sect, Xing Gongzi, happens to be my wife." Pfft. Cough, cough. West Mountain Mad Devil had just picked up the water on the table and took a sip. When he heard this, he almost choked. He lay on the table and coughed for a long time. Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with him. He spread his hands and continued, "If you don't allow the Awakening Gate to participate in this operation, then my wife might be very unhappy. If she's unhappy, then I'll be unhappy. Once I'm in a bad mood, this plan of entering the world of cultivation might not go smoothly. It might even be put on hold. You guys have to think carefully." The reason why Xiao Qin used this reason to threaten the immortal cultivation sect and the ghost cultivation sect was to point out his relationship with Xing Gongzi. On the other hand, he wanted Xing Gongzi, the sect leader, to have a strong enough background. Even if he was not by her side in the future, she would be able to better establish herself in the inner martial world. Cough, cough. I didn't expect it to be like this. After West Mountain Mad Devil pretended to cough for a while, as if he had just heard what Xiao Chen said, he put on a surprised expression and sighed. Since sect leader Xing and little friend Xiao Chen have such a relationship, of course, Awakened Sect can join. West Mountain Mad Devil did not expect that the two of them would have such a close relationship. He was not a fool. He knew very well that since the young man in front of him said it, he would definitely be able to do it. Now that he was under the control of others, he really had no choice but to agree. There seemed to be no better choice. Our immortal cultivation sect has no objections. Song Weizong was very disdainful of West Mountain Mad Devil's hypocritical acting, but he still echoed his opinion. Song Weizong was also a little afraid of Xiao Chen. After all, Xiao Chen's strength was clear for all to see. Even if Song Weizong was not willing, he would not openly reject Xiao Chen on the spot. That was clearly an irrational action. He might end up like the West Mountain Mad Demon and get beaten up. Chapter 1270. Lady Xing, who was sitting next to Xiao Chen, blushed and looked very shy. She clenched her fists tightly and did not dare to move. She was a little nervous and embarrassed, but also a little excited. Was Xiao Chen's action a confession to her? Or did it mean that he had already acknowledged her? Little Xing remembered that Xiao Chen had said something similar back in the Venerable Realm. At that time, she thought he was just spouting nonsense. Now that he mentioned it again, could it be that he really wanted to take it a step further and improve their relationship? Gong Sun Yen, who was standing at the side, was expressionless. He did not express any opinion about Xiao Chen's declaration of sovereignty. It was as if he had tacitly agreed to it. Gong Sun Yen had been immersed in the Awakening Heaven sect for a long time and had played many tricks. Therefore, he knew very well that in the face of absolute strength, any trick would be ineffective. Therefore, at this time, he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. In addition, Gong Sun Yan's character was to bully the weak and fear the strong. Although he was very ambitious, he was very timid. Otherwise, he would not have deliberately made so many moves after Situ Haotian had left for so long. He had to make sure that Situ Haotian would not respond. Now that Xiao Chen's strength was so high that even the Immortal Cultivation faction and the Ghost Cultivation faction, which he respected and feared, did not dare to act rashly in front of him. How could Gongsun Yen dare to have other thoughts? He could only choose to surrender. Moreover, now that Xiao Chen had taken the initiative to let Awakening Heaven sect join because of his relationship with Xing Gongzi, Gongsun Yen would not oppose it. Gongsun Yen felt that if he could take advantage of this opportunity, he might be able to fulfill the wish that he had failed to achieve with his biohuman plan. He could use this opportunity to enter the world of immortal cultivation and obtain a higher level of strength. No objections, right? If not, then hurry up and ask for instructions. Do you believe that I will give you a kick as a plane ticket? Xiao Chen waited for a while. Seeing that everyone was silent, he glared at Mad Devil of Shishan and shouted fiercely. Mad Demon Shishan looked angry. His lips squirmed as if he wanted to curse a few times, but in the end, he didn't say anything. He stood up and walked out of the conference room dejectedly. Song Weizong looked at the back of West Mountain Mad Devil and then looked at Xiao Chen's expression. He was wondering if he should leave first when Xiao Chen suddenly said with a smile, "Song family head, now that the annoying old man from West Mountain is not here, I have something to ask you." Song Weizong was slightly taken aback, but he quickly waved his hand and said, "Hee, I don't dare to ask for advice. Little friend Jian, feel free to speak your mind. As long as this old man knows the answer, I will definitely tell you everything." After seeing how Xiao Chen dealt with the mad demon of Shishan, Song Weizong had developed a little respect for him from the bottom of his heart, so his attitude had unconsciously become a lot more polite. "Oh, actually, it's nothing big. I just want to understand something from you." Xiao Chen didn't bother to beat around the bush and asked directly, "I heard that your immortal cultivation sect can open the door to the immortal cultivation world through the method of sacrifice, right? How does this process work? Since it's a sacrifice, what kind of sacrifices do you need to prepare?" As for the specific method of sacrifice, Xiao Chen was still confused. Thinking that Hongzhu and Xia Fei needed to participate in the sacrifice, and that Goddess Shen might also be involved, he thought that it would be better to take the time to find out more about it while the Song family head was here. If there were any problems, he would be able to find a solution in time. This. Song Weizong's expression changed slightly. He stroked his beard and did not speak for a while. Although there was nothing strange on the surface, Song Weizong's heart was already in turmoil at this time. He was extremely surprised. How did this kid know about the sacrifice? Logically speaking, this matter should be the core secret of the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect. Even some of the elders in the family may not know about it. Where did he hear about it? And from this guy's tone, it seems that this matter is already set in stone, and there is no trace of testing. Who gave him this certainty? Looking at Song Weizong's changing expression and his hesitant look, Xiao Chen curled his lips and said with a faint smile, looking at Song family head's expression, "Could it be that the information I received was wrong? Or does Song family head feel that there is no need to tell me, a partner, the details of opening the door to the immortal cultivation world?" No, little friend Jian, please don't misunderstand. This old man doesn't mean that at all. Song Weizong shook his head like a rattle drum. He was afraid that if he accidentally angered this demon, he would be beaten up like the mad demon of Shishan. However, Xiao Chen refused to give up. He continued to ask, "Then Song family head, are you afraid that after I know the specific details, I will no longer cooperate with your immortal cultivation sect and turn around to make a fortune on my own?" Sweat dripped down Song Weizong's forehead. He could only open his mouth with difficulty and say, that, our immortal cultivation sect does have the method of sacrifice, but as for the specific operation, I am also not very clear. This is because this is the common secret of the immortal cultivation sect. The relevant secret manual is still in the family's secret place. Only when the sacrifice begins can it be officially announced. Xiao Chen's face immediately darkened. Even a fool could see that Song Weizong was lying. As the dignified Song family head, how could he not even know the method of the sacrifice? Isn't this nonsense? Does he really think that he is a naive little rabbit who is ignorant of the world? According to what you said, even if I wanted to know the procedure of the sacrifice in advance and then make sufficient preparations in advance, it is impossible? Xiao Chen's tone had become somewhat dangerous. That may not be the case. Song Weizong swallowed his saliva and asked tentatively, how about I first discuss it with the other families? After all, the secret method of the sacrifice is a common item of our entire sect. This old man can only represent the Song family and cannot make decisions for others. If they do not object, this old man will tell you the entire method of the sacrifice. What do you think, little friend Jian? Song Weizong could naturally see that Xiao Chen was already a bit unhappy. However, he also did not want to hand over his trump card so quickly. In desperation, he could only choose to use a delaying tactic to buy some time before making a decision. Oh. Could it be that other than the Song family and the Hong family, there are other families participating? Xiao Chen was a bit surprised. Previously, when Gong's son Yan had mentioned it to him, Xiao Chen had thought that those unknown small families were only some martial cultivators and demonic cultivators, or even ordinary people who were only there to do manual labor. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.